Noch, became, for the beings who heard them, what is called harmoniously flowing and not harmfully acting. And so, my boy, this apparatus Lav Noch, and also the detailed theory of this ancient conscientious learned being, King Tu-Tos, suffered the same fate as the incomparable apparatus Allah Atapan, and the whole totality of true information cognized by the brothers. Owing to the continuing and even increasing formation in the sense of quantity of certain of your favorites of the mentioned new type, with the said inherency of cunning wiseacring, all this totality of information was from that time on altered, and its genuine sense and significance gradually forgotten. And as regards how the basic principle of the arrangement of the strings of the apparatus Lav Noch, and also that part of the Allah Atapan, the Zenvoch, automatically reached to your contemporary favorites, this proceeded owing to the following reasons. When the acuteness of the mentioned confused period had passed, and when certain of the surviving fragments from all these great attainments of reason of the still relatively normal three-brained beings of your planet again began to be transmitted to subsequent generations, in that way which before this had already been well established in the process of their ordinary existence, that is to say, the way of transmission only through beings who had already merited to become and to acquire the knowledge of genuine initiates. And when each year from among these latter, more and more responsible beings were formed with the inherency just mentioned, then at this same period of time, a three-brained being, also a scientist of new formation, who arose in this same China under the name of Chai Yu, was formed into a responsible being and became the cause of the knowledge and practical adoption of this seven-toned scale of sound, becoming generally accessible. And being transmitted from generation to generation, it automatically reached also to your contemporary favorites. In the early years of his responsible existence, this Chai Yu was destined, thanks to certain of his corresponding subjective merits, for a candidate of what is called first degree of initiate, and in consequence, help was given him without his knowledge, as it had long before been established by custom by the genuine initiated beings there, who had to do so to obtain every kind of information relating to various true events which took place on their planet in the past. And as my latest detailed investigations elucidated to me, he became worthy, among other things, to be also informed about the great apparatus Lav Noch in all details of its construction. And then, only in order that similar beings around him should regard him as a scientist, this Chai Yu, being one of the first, so to say, ideally formed scientists of new formation, there, that is, a being with a completely formed inherency to wiseacre, not only wiseacred a new theory of his own on the basis of this information learned by him in the said manner concerning the details of the great apparatus Lav Noch, affirming and denying, so to say, absolutely nothing relating to the laws of vibration, but he also constructed his new simplified sound-producing instrument named King. His simplification consisted in this, that without having at all taken into consideration the red and hair strings on the Lav Noch, he made the basis of his sound-producing instrument only the white and black strings, and moreover only the number of strings of 2 octaves, and he placed them thus, that one whole octave, which was found in the middle, had for its evolutionary and involutionary continuation half an octave from its next higher octave, and half an octave from its preceding lower octave. And so, although the theory wiseacred by this Chai Yu also did not last very long, yet nevertheless this sound-producing instrument, King, constructed by him, had become generally accessible owing to its simplicity. And in consequence of the fact that the result obtained from it during intentional action turned out to be very good and satisfactory for, so to say, the tickling of many data crystallized in their common presences thanks to the consequences of the properties of the organ Kundabuffer, it began to pass automatically down from generation to generation. Although the outer form of this sound-producing instrument, together with the construction of its frame, the stretch of the strings, and their names, were changed many times by the beings of subsequent generations, having been ultimately formed among your contemporary favorites into their heavy sound-producing instruments, complicated to the degree of idiocy, and in their power incommensurably degenerated to a childish degree, such as clavicymbals, clavichord, organ, grand piano, upright piano, harmonium, and so on. Yet the basic principle of what is called the alternation of gravity center sounds has remained at the present time, such as were actualized by the Saint brothers Chun Kil Tez and Chun Tro Pel on the Zenboch, that is, the middle independent part created by them of the incomparable experimental apparatus a la Atapan. That is why, my boy, this, as it is now called there, Chinese seven-toned subdivision of the octave of sound, simplified by the mentioned Chai Yu, which has reached down to your contemporary favorites and which is used at the present time by them for all their sound-producing instruments enumerated by me, might still, as I've already said, partly serve for, so to say, the practical confrontative study and approximate cognizance of how, in the process of the most great Trogo-Autoegocrat, from what is called the flowing of some vibrations from others, cosmic substances arise of different density and vivifyingness, and in which way, uniting and disuniting among themselves, they form large and small, relatively independent concentrations, and thus actualize the common cosmic Iran-Iran-Umanj. Moreover, you will soon clearly convince yourself about this when, on returning to our dear Caritas, I will show you, as I've already promised, and explain practically the significance of the tuning of that contemporary sound-producing instrument, the piano, which was taken by me, among a number of things, from the surface of your planet, and which I brought in order experimentally to elucidate to myself, on being free at home, one of its particularities which I did not have sufficient time to elucidate there on the spot, and which is connected with the strange psyche of these three-brained beings who have taken your fancy, and with the vibrations of different vivifyingness engendered around them. And if, besides this, I now still add, concerning the strange psyche of your favorites, what I constated during my last sojourn among them, namely that none of the contemporary three-brained beings of your planet, in spite of the fact that they, having put this same Chinese seven-tone subdivision as the basis of all their sound-producing instruments, almost daily perceive the results of its consequences, are not only not at all inspired by this as they should be objectively, but on the contrary, under the action of this kind of consonance, with the total absence of remorse, and even with the impulse of satisfaction, intentionally maintain in themselves the flowing of those associations of all their spiritualized parts which arise,